As most of you all are aware, the HC Coombs Policy Forum is a strategic collaboration between the Australian government and the ANU through the Crawford School of Public Policy. Our mission is to enhance linkages between research and policy and generate thought leadership around emerging policy challenges. This dialogue, Creating a Productive Future, Social and Economic Challenges, Policy and Governance, is a case in point and evidence of our mission. This is a landmark event where leading thinkers from the Harvard Kennedy School, Crawford School of Public Policy, and our colleagues from the Australian Public Service have come together in conversation to ponder over the challenges of socioeconomic convergence, policy, and governance issues. I'm pleased to be co-chairing this dialogue with Professor Bruce Weston. As I mentioned, this event is a result of many, many months of conversation. It's my great pleasure to especially welcome to Canberra and to this dialogue members of the Harvard delegation. Despite being in the middle of a teaching semester, they've taken the time to be with us for these 2 days. Welcome and thank you very much. To our colleagues from the Australian Government's Public Service, a very warm welcome to you as well. Gleaning from my time in the public service, I know there's no better place to be in a Parliament sitting week than outside the bureaucracy. On a more serious note, we at the ANU appreciate your ongoing support, and I hope you find the engagement over the next 2 days meaningful and valuable to our work. It's time for Professor Bruce Weston, co-chair and director of the Malcolm Wiener Center for Social Policy, to deliver some opening remarks. Bruce is professor of sociology with research interests in the field of poverty, income inequality, and criminal justice policy. He's also a Guggenheim Fellow and an elected Fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Bruce Weston.
Thanks so much, Chris. And wow, it's wonderful to be here after so much planning and discussion about these sessions. It's really a great pleasure to welcome everyone here today. When Chris and I first discussed this meeting about a year or so ago, we thought that the United States and Australia were clearly on different economic and political paths, but recovery from recession and financial crisis might present each country with similar kinds of long-term challenges. And so a key question we thought faced both these countries. And this is really the key question for our work over the next day and a half. And it's this: how can economic prosperity be broadly shared so as to engage all of the potential and all of the talents of the population? Not just in the coming decade, but from one generation to the next. That, I hope, is the large question that we'll grapple with over the coming program. We thought a US-Australian conversation could really open up our thinking. From my point of view, as an Australian expat, we on the American side could learn much from the policymakers and analysts from a country with a long-standing system of national health care, and that has recently engaged in lively political debates about national broadband, about a tax on carbon. It seems that such projects of national imagination are very difficult to have in the United States at the moment. In the US, problems of acute poverty, economic stagnation of the middle class, and world record income inequality remain paramount. I'm hoping that the Australian example can inspire our imaginations. I'm very lucky to be joined by some wonderful colleagues who have been thinking deeply about the many challenges now facing US society. Kathy Eden from Harvard's Kennedy School, Matt Desmond and Jason Beckfield from the Sociology Department at Harvard, and Glenn Lowry from the Economics Department at Brown. Each of these scholars is doing superb work that's teaching us a lot about social and economic inequality in the United States. I'm very grateful for their willingness to embark on this journey, not just across the Pacific, but in this cross-national policy dialogue. Before closing, for now, I'd like to acknowledge the support of the Malcolm Wiener Center for Social Policy at the Kennedy School at Harvard and the Australian Studies Committee at Harvard that's generously supported our travel. Much of the organisation and planning on the US side was led by Mila Cherachina of the Kennedy School, and she's been indispensable to bringing us together. So welcome everyone to what I hope is going to be a lively and provocative and imaginative exchange. And now let me turn it over to Tom Compass.
Good morning, everyone. If we've not met, my name is Tom Compass. I'm the director of the Crawford School of Public Policy, and I wanted to add my welcome as well to this event. My real task is to introduce Lisa Paul, the Secretary of the Department of Education, Employment, and Work Relations. But before I do that, let me just take a moment to also pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land that we meet on, and with great respect to their elders, past and present. The Crawford School, if you don't know us, I hope you do, Crawford School is ANU's public policy school. It has broad expertise in political science, public policy, the environment, development, and economics. I think no better setting to hold a conference like this on productivity than here at the Crawford School. Thanks to our friends from Harvard for being here. Bruce, thank you very much. Making me a bit nostalgic, a little bit homesick. Very happy to have you here. And thanks as well to Chris Vass and HC Coombs Policy Forum for putting together such a lovely event. I'm sure it'll be very rewarding. Lisa's, of course, Secretary of DEWR, and also a member, I'm proud to say, of Crawford School's Advisory Council. To provide the opening keynote presentation, please, a warm welcome for Lisa Paul.
Well, thank you, Tom, for that kind introduction. And I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on today, and in a spirit of reconciliation, pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I'm honoured to open a symposium which in its own way celebrates the United States-Australia alliance. This is especially so because I was born in the United States, but migrated to Australia with my parents, well, enough years ago to lose my American accent. United States Ambassador Jeffrey Bleich has talked about the unstoppable ability of Australians and Americans working together, and we'll celebrate that ability here during this symposium. It's a great privilege to join with Harvard colleagues to consider the question of creating a productive future by tackling social and economic challenges and considering policy and governance implications. Well, the United States, of course, is still a leader in productivity performance. Australian labour productivity was only 81% of the US level in 2011. US labour productivity growth slowed over the past decade, with a brief surge in 2010 following the recession. Australia's productivity growth has slowed since the 1990s. Our productivity growth averaged 1.8% per year from 2000 to 2011. However, it has lifted to 2.3% over the year to the December quarter 2012. Let's hope this continues. After all, productivity growth continues to be responsible for almost all of any increases in GDP per capita. Australia's productivity needs to continue to lift if we are to remain competitive internationally. The advantages conferred by our resources sector are, of course, significant. But Australia's challenge is not just about using resource wealth efficiently. Investment in people is crucial to building long-term prosperity. Work we commissioned in 2009 from KPMG Econtech highlighted the potential economic benefits of investing in people. Their modelling estimated that government investments in early childhood could generate up to a 1.5% increase in labour force participation and a 1.2% growth in productivity to 2040. Achieving the national goal of 90% of K-12 students completing Year 12 or equivalent could generate up to 0.6% more GDP and 0.4% more employment every year to 2040. Econtech also estimated that reaching national higher education and training targets could generate up to 2.9% more GDP each year to 2040. Taken all together, GDP could be $108 billion higher every year than the baseline from 2010 to 2040. That equals a gain of about $4,000 per person per year. or it could represent more than 500,000 additional jobs into the Australian economy. Analysis by PricewaterhouseCoopers tells us that achieving world-leading standards in K-12 schooling could generate an extra $3.6 trillion for Australia's economy over the life of a child born now. Their report said that accepting a less than great education system imposes opportunity costs on Australia. And of course, these opportunity costs include people earning less than they could otherwise because they haven't got the higher order skills needed to succeed in the global economy. All this work shows that investment in people matters. The then chairman of the Productivity Commission, Gary Banks, said last year, investment in human capital development is fundamental to innovation and related productivity improvements. So I've argued that investing in people's skills and potential is an essential precondition for increasing productivity. But you can invest in people in a fair and inclusive way, or conversely, in a way that leaves people behind. In Australia, we know that, unfortunately, a likely explanation of a gap in K-12 school performance between two children of the same age is that one is from a wealthy background and one is not. The labour force participation rate for Australians of working age with a disability was 54% in 2009, compared with 83% for people without disability, and this gap has persisted for over a decade. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders continue to have worse health, education and income than other Australians. The gap between the region in Australia with the lowest unemployment rate and the region with the highest widened during the global financial crisis and has not yet closed. While Australians pride themselves on being egalitarian and giving people a fair go, this is not the lived experience for some people in our country. So I would argue that not only is investing in people's potential a precondition of increasing productivity, but that doing it in a way that creates opportunities fairly should also be seen as a precondition. And once these important preconditions are met, let's not forget that it is people in their places of work who actually create productivity. The Governor of Australia's Reserve Bank, Glenn Stevens, said recently, "Sometimes when we talk about productivity, I think there's a tendency in community discussions to think of this as a very nice, soft, wonderful concept and that we can just dial it up. But it actually doesn't work that way. It works by firms, managements and workforces grinding out difficult changes to the way they do things every day. That is where the productivity comes from, and from implementing new technology, new equipment and new ways of doing things. Workplaces are the engine room of the economy. It's where everything comes together to produce the goods and services that we and others consume. And Australian economist Saul Eslake has noted that workplaces are where the decisions that actually lead to higher levels of productivity are formulated and executed. To improve productivity, workplaces need to innovate, need to harness technology and focus on efficiency. But we also know instinctively that people in happy, engaged, safe and well-managed workplaces will go the extra mile. They will offer more effort and simply be more productive. Good leadership, management and organisational culture can significantly increase productivity in workplaces. Our department commissioned research that compared workplaces performing well on employee satisfaction, wellbeing and commitment to workplaces not performing as well. The high-performing workplaces were 12% more productive than the low-performing workplaces. They had 23% less staff turnover. They spent 30% more time with their employees. Their average profit margin ratio was 15% compared with 5% in the low-performing workplaces, amounting to a $40,000 difference in profit per full-time employee per year. It's compelling stuff. But if the link with productivity is so obvious, why are there still chief executives who are loathed by their employees? Why are there still bullies at work? Why are there unsafe and unhealthy workplaces? Why aren't measures of employee satisfaction taken as seriously as the profit and loss statement? Luckily, there's a growing movement in Australia of companies, unions and governments seeking to raise the bar on leadership, management and culture. An important new initiative in Australia is the creation of a National Centre for Workplace Leadership, announced by the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations, Bill Shorten, last year. There are 1.3 million bosses in this country and they deserve to be the best they can be. The centre will offer them training. It will lead public debate on the importance of good leadership and drive a broader movement to do things differently at work. I'm excited by this initiative because great leaders help create great places to work. And we all want to work somewhere great, where the boss cares for us in a genuine way, where we're motivated by the company's vision, where we don't have to leave our personalities at home, and where people reach out when we need help. Workplaces where people are involved in decisions that affect them, and where their voices are heard. About 4,000 people work in our Department of Education, Employment and Workplace Relations. We administer more than $30 billion a year to give Australians quality childcare and preschool, great schools, good jobs, and fair and safe workplaces. In our department, we've managed budget reductions for 3 years, yet we are doing more for government and for Australians. To do more with less, we have streamlined business processes and rationalised programs. But last year, we also did something new. We asked everyone in the department what work we could stop or change. Thousands of ideas came in. Some were simple, such as defaulting printers to black and white. Some were bigger, such as being brutally clear about our priorities and valuing our people overall. The crucial element is that we are involving our people directly and engaging with their own futures, even in a constrained budget environment. When our 2012 staff survey results came in, employee satisfaction had gone up, even though we are managing a reduced budget. Our people rated the department well above Australian averages on almost every measure. This is a tribute to people in all our workplaces. I am convinced that greater employee satisfaction pays off in greater productivity. It's also my view that a diverse workforce is a driver of increased productivity. This is supported by exploratory research released by Deloitte last year. Based on a survey of employees from 3 large Australian companies, Deloitte found that when employees think their organisation is committed to and supportive of diversity, and they feel included, employees report better business performance in terms of ability to innovate, responsiveness to changing customer needs, and team collaboration. I'm enormously proud of the fact that in our organisation, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are almost 6% of the workforce, compared to 2.7% in the broader population. We involve all our people in making Indigenous business everyone's business. In 2010, 28% of our staff said the department's commitment to reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians had influenced their behaviour inside or outside work. By 2012, this proportion had increased to 58%. From a business perspective, a commitment to diversity is not only the right thing to do, but makes good business sense. Of course, Australia will have to harness every productivity advantage to remain globally competitive. This is especially the case given the rise of Asian economies in our region. In the past 20 years, China and India have almost tripled their share of the global economy. They've increased their economic size almost 6 times over. In the past 10 years, China's share of global value-add manufacturing has doubled, and China, as you would know, is now the world's largest exporter. By 2025, the region as a whole will account for almost half the world's output. Japan, South Korea, Singapore, and more recently China and India have doubled their income per person within a decade. To put this into perspective, it took the United Kingdom over 50 years to double income per person during the Industrial Revolution. By 2020, Asia is expected to have more middle-class consumers than the rest of the world combined, driving rapid growth in private consumption. Between 2000 and 2011, the number of cars per 100 urban households in China is estimated to have risen from less than 1 to more than 18. The number of computers from 8 to 80, and the number of mobile phones from 16 to over 200. Between 1990 In 2009, energy consumption in Asia more than doubled, and the region's share of global energy consumption increased from 25 to 38%. China is now the world's largest energy consumer, having gone from consuming less than half as much energy as the United States in 2000 to consuming slightly more today. Urbanisation has been staggering in Asia. 44 million people move into Asian cities every year. This all means we are in a race, even to stay where we are. In recent years, for example, for the first time, K-12 students in several Asian cities and countries have done better on average than Australian students in international tests for reading and math. 4 of the 5 top-performing K-12 systems in the world are located in East Asia. Students in Shanghai, South Korea, Hong Kong and Singapore are on average 45 points ahead of the OECD average in reading. This means that these East Asian students are more than a year in front of students at the OECD average. So engagement with Asia is another precondition for future growth in Australian productivity. In launching the Australia in the Asian Century White Paper, the Prime Minister Julia Gillard said, "Our nation has benefited from Asia's appetite for raw materials and energy. The challenge we must now address is how Australia can benefit from what Asia will need next." Importantly, in terms of the arguments I've made here, the authors of the White Paper said, "As a nation, we must do even more to develop the capabilities that will help Australia succeed. Our greatest responsibility is to invest in our people through skills and education, to drive Australia's productivity performance and ensure that all Australians can participate and contribute." The theme of this symposium is creating a productive future. We can learn from the US experience and from the growth in our region. To achieve a productive future, I believe we need to keep investing in people as a precondition for increasing economic productivity. And we should recognise that investing in people fairly will generate even more productivity. Once these preconditions are met, we should focus on productivity inside workplaces and focus on good leadership, good management and positive organisational culture. If we can harness these opportunities, we will be best placed to remain globally competitive and to create our own productive future. Congratulations to everyone who is part of this symposium, and I hope you find it stimulating and enjoyable. Thank you very much.